Hey guys, so at this point, you have hopefully gotten to where you have your positive and your negative objects and you are ready to unroll. And I just want to show you how to unroll these two because in this case, you're for sure going to encounter some of the issues that were covered last time in terms of having some surfaces that overlap and potential mirroring problems. So I want to go through the unrolling process with you for these objects again. But before we get to that, I want to go through once again, just through the process and show you what some of these other different types of intersections produce. And so in order to do that, I'm going to actually take this second model, and you can see here that I have all my tests and my visuals of the first one that I showed you, and in the back I have the third version, and I have the two, sort of the positive and the negative that one creates, which I think are kind of rather fascinating, in particular this carved block. But I just want to show you what to do in terms of or what it would look like with three conical intersections. So just as a reminder, this is the version that has three cones that intersect each other, and now we're going to intersect them with our 4" by 4" cube, right? And so before we do that, we go ahead and we copy it over 15 like we did with the other one. Then we hide the cube, and then we grab all three of the cones that are all intersecting each other, and we do a Boolean union, right? And that, as a reminder, what that does is that creates a continuous enclosed poly surface out of those three previously differentiated objects, right? So now we have that. So now we can show our cube, copy that over, and we're going to copy that over 15 again. And now onto this, now we're going to grab both the intersected cones plus the cube and type Boolean split. And remember that doesn't, and then we have to grab them again and hit enter, and that doesn't look like much, but the split has occurred. So when I go ahead and look at the cube, it has been split, and the objects themselves have also been split. So now once again, just to make sure, I'm going to copy those, and I'm going to copy those 15 again. And now for the purposes of this exercise, I can delete the portions of the intersections that lie outside of the 4" by 4" cube. This also in a way ensures that those objects have some level, in terms of the cones, for example, some level of flat surfaces on which they could rest, right? And so now I can grab this and move it over 15 again. And in this case, now I can see, what the positive and the negative, or the negative and the positive, whichever way you want to look at it, for these intersections look like. So you can see here, right, this is what I was talking about, that actually describing the exact location of this intersection would be exceedingly difficult if we were doing it in any way that is not just through a process of carving, of removal. But through that process, we get these beautiful forms that are the result of the process, and that now we have the information in order to be able to replicate them exactly. So this is the part of the exercise where we're moving on, and now that we have these two, we're gonna unroll them and create their paper templates. So I think what's important to note here is that now you're going to start having a lot of stuff on your Rhino model, and so sometimes it's very useful to start being able to control what things you see and you don't see. So at this point, for example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab everything and then hold Control and deselect my two objects so that those are not in the group. I gotta make sure I have everything. And now I'm gonna go here to the little pie, which is our layers option. And I'm gonna move all of those things to a different layer. So in this case, I'm gonna move them to layer 1, and I do that by right-clicking on layer 1 and change object layer. So you'll see they'll all change to the color of that layer. And I can actually now, for example, turn them off. So it's not that they're gone and they're not hidden, or if I type show, nothing's going to happen. It's just that the layer itself is turned on and off, right? So that's one way to control where things are. So, but now it cleans up my space and I can sort of start working again. So you're gonna have to create two objects, two unrolled objects. And so I'm gonna start out with the cube. So if I grab my cube and I type unroll, and I change it from explode to no, and I press enter, you'll see it's gonna come up with what looks like a garbled mess, right? And as I mentioned, that's because we have a lot of concave, right, surfaces, or surfaces that go into the already existing object. And so when you lay them flat, they overlap, right? And so, you know, maybe I look at this and I become slightly terrified of the object, and so I don't know what to do, and I delete it. And instead what I do is I explode my object, and I say, well, I know that a cube is made up of 6 surfaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, right? So maybe I actually just join those and unroll those, right? So now at least I know that. And maybe to make sure that I have everything, what I'll do is I'll also, as I unroll, I will copy all this over just to make sure, but then as I am unrolling things, I delete them. So now I have, oh, okay, so now I see, well, there's not that many additional surfaces, right? There's this one, there's this one, there's this one. And maybe rather than trying to unroll those all together, I unroll those separately because they're cones and they're by definition going to overlap with each other. So then I would unroll this one. And you see it produces a template that would be very, very difficult to produce otherwise, right? So I can delete that one, and then I can unroll this one. I can unroll this one. And I can unroll this one. And those are the templates now for this object, okay? And it will take a little bit of time to roll them together and piece them together. And maybe this is where I realize that this is a slightly complex object, but it's certainly doable. And you can see here that this is a matter of figuring out how to fold this cone in order to produce the correct size once we get it into the paper, right? So those would be the templates. You would then continue with the traditional process that I showed you from last time, which is to look at things from top view, to explode them, and then to make 2D. Click OK. And now we see those are the templates for that part of the object. Okay, and then the exact same process, I'm gonna go ahead and move this whole thing over, but the exact same process would be done for this object. And in this case, I can already tell that it's gonna be, if I just try and do it all at once, it's gonna be very difficult and a little bit of a mess. So instead, I'm gonna explode it, and from preemptively, I'm going to join all of these surfaces together. This bottom part of that cone. I'm going to join these surfaces together. And then I'm going to join this one and this one together, and then this one and these two together, and then afterwards unroll them. So now when I go ahead and unroll this, you'll see, well, that you might still have some intersections, but that's because of the cone, right? So we can imagine actually that this gives you a sense of where things are tangentially to each other, but maybe we then explode this, and we know that this piece and this piece match each other right there, and that they form the two parts of that cone, right? So I could continue that process and unroll all the pieces for my cones and put them together. So now you get a sense of the process, and as I said, it will take a little bit more time, and maybe you'll realize that the cones are particularly challenging, and that's something that you're interested in doing, or you decide that you don't want to have as many curved surfaces, and so you design a composition that uses some other kinds of elements, and that is totally fine as well. But the process will be the same. So I wanted to show you what the process would look like for what I would consider the most challenging type of surfaces and objects to make. Anything else should be slightly easier. So that is it.